made me want to join Charlie's cause and Charlie's team because he began a quest to hire me after meeting me. I was reluctant at first, but it was his naive audaciousness to change the world that ultimately sold me.
If you've been following the Erika Kirk story over the past few months, you've seen the tears, the interviews, the public grief, but today we're going beyond the performance because now there's a new figure in the spotlight, and what we're uncovering isn't just about emotion, it's about money, power, and a system that may have been exploited while a nation was mourning. Her name is Stacy Sheridan, and if you look closely at Charlie's Medal of Honor ceremony, at every press appearance, at every step Erika has taken since his passing, you'll see Stacy always there, always close. But who is she?
My name is Stacy Sheridan. 8 years ago, I met Charlie in a crowded ballroom in West Palm Beach.
And why are insiders now calling her the real operator behind the curtain? Officially, she was a senior fundraiser, but behind closed doors, sources are describing something far more calculated.
Wouldn't it be interesting if Stacy Sheridan was making $180,000 a year as a senior advancement director, which raises money for Turning Point USA as a fundraiser, and she also owns multiple entities, taking in millions of dollars for her own self.
A pattern of financial moves, shell companies, and millions of dollars, all tied back to her role inside one of the largest conservative youth organizations in America. This isn't just gossip. This is a story about what happens when the mechanisms of influence are quietly turned into instruments of personal gain. So let's walk through this, step by step, document by document, because what we found changes everything you thought you knew about the Erika Kirk narrative.
This shows you exactly how Stacy Sheridan is taking money as an employee, also being hidden as an employee, and also taking a commission from every single fundraising that she brings in.
Let's start at the beginning. Who is Stacy Sheridan, really? On paper, her role seems clear and even noble. According to Turning Point USA's own website, Stacy holds or has held titles like Senior Advancement Director and Senior Director of Development. Her job is basically to identify and engage wealthy donors, to provide resources for activists to make a measurable impact. In other words, her job was to fund the movement, to find the patriots willing to open their wallets for the cause. But here is where the official story and the insider allegations dramatically diverge, because within TPUSA's own walls, a very different name for Stacy Sheridan has emerged. Not a title from the website, but a whispered label from those who claim to know the internal truth: the grifter in chief.
To be able to continue Charlie Kirk's legacy if they are employing people who are stealing donations. The reason that people are concerned about Turning Point USA's finances is because statements made by Charlie Kirk himself. This is a memo written by Charlie Kirk on September 2nd, 2025. That is only 8 days before he was murdered.
The accusation is not simply that she was bad at her job, it's far more serious. Multiple sources allege that Stacy Sheridan operated a financial back channel, a network of companies she owned or controlled that allegedly siphoned millions of dollars away from TPUSA's fundraising efforts. Think about that for a moment. The person entrusted to bring money into the organization is simultaneously accused of building a system to funnel money out. It wasn't a failure of strategy. It was, according to these reports, a parallel operation running right under the organization's nose. So how could this happen? Let's follow the money, because the structure that insiders describe isn't just opportunistic, it appears systematic. First, there's the official compensation. Stacy Sheridan reportedly earns a salary of approximately $180,000 a year as a senior fundraiser. A substantial figure, but not extraordinary for that role in a large organization. But here is where the mechanism kicks in. Simultaneously, Stacy owns and operates multiple private companies, LLCs with names like Cloverstone Ventures, Lion Rock Ventures, and GSM Strategies. According to insider reports, these were not separate business ventures. They allegedly functioned as conduits. Funds raised for TPUSA would be channeled through these companies, allowing Stacy to take what's been described as substantial confidential commissions, anywhere from $100,000 to $500,000 on top of her salary. This practice has a blunt name behind the scenes: triple dipping. It implies not just double compensation, but a layered, redundant skimming of donor funds. It turns the fundraising apparatus into a personal revenue stream.
So the way it works is that she's actually raising money as a fundraiser hired by the company, being paid a salary, and then she creates an LLC. She's got Cloverstone Ventures, Lion Rock Ventures, GSM Strategies, and she's taking money, millions of dollars, for Turning Point USA. She's filtering it through her company, taking a commission in the $500,000 range and the $100,000 range, and and just it adds up to millions of dollars. She's literally taking a commission off of the job that she's supposed to be doing as a salaried position through her own personal interested LLCs, and not filling out the proper documentation to even show anybody that she's doing this.
But a story like this inevitably leads to a paper trail, and this is where the official record gets curiously quiet. Recently, Stacy Sheridan's name has mysteriously vanished, scrubbed from the TPUSA website, absent from recent IRS Form 990 filings, the legally required public disclosures where nonprofits must detail their highest paid employees and key contracts.
Wouldn't it be interesting if Stacy Sheridan was making $180,000 a year as a senior advancement director, which raises money for Turning Point USA as a fundraiser, and she also owns multiple entities, taking in millions of dollars for her own self-interest, while appearing on a Form 990 as a key employee, but then not appearing on any 990s as a key employee, but showing up on the website in the Wayback Machine, which means they secretly took her off of the website so people wouldn't know, while she's just romping around raising money in 2019, 2020, 2021, 2023, 2024.
This isn't a minor oversight. For someone allegedly central to multi-million-dollar fundraising operations, her disappearance from these documents is deafening. Proper disclosure of these kinds of financial arrangements, payments to companies owned by a senior employee, isn't just good practice, it's the law. Schedule L of the IRS Form 990 exists specifically to expose potential conflicts of interest and self-dealing. The absence raises a critical, uncomfortable question. Is this an attempt to obscure the financial flows, to sever the visible link between the organization, the employee, and her companies?
Turning Point decided not to file 3 of the 4 of their annual financial statements 4 months before Charlie Kirk appointed a new COO, requested a new audit, and was murdered. Those 3 financial statements are still missing.
We're no longer just talking about aggressive fundraising. We're looking at an alleged financial structure followed by a disappearance from the legal record. That moves us from gossip into a serious conversation about transparency, accountability, and where the donor's dollar truly ends up. And this fact has had people on the internet talking. So these people are the devil people at TPUSA call Stacy Sheridan grifter in chief. 90% of TPUSA is money laundering and scams. I did a lot of research, and wow, I'm in disbelief of the corruption and money laundering at TPUSA. Trust me, it's not the milk and honey they want you to think, more like evil. Now, financial records and insider allegations paint one picture, but what happens when we step out of the boardroom and into the public eye? Because Stacy Sheridan hasn't just been a name on a leaked org chart or a missing line in a tax form. Since Charlie's passing, she has been a constant, visible presence, not in the background, but center stage in the theater of public grief.
The fact that we pulled this off in 7 days is a miracle that only Charlie Kirk can deliver, by the way. So, in Charlie's words, let's get to work, everybody. We have a country to save. Thank you.
And it's here, in these carefully watched moments, that the narrative takes on a deeply personal and for many perplexing dimension. At Charlie's Medal of Honor ceremony and memorial events, observers noted a recurring, poignant detail, a physical and emotional gap. There was Erika Kirk, the widow, and there were Charlie's grieving parents. And between them, often literally stepping into that space, was Stacy Sheridan. Her role appeared to transcend handler or colleague. She was the one seen consoling Erika, guiding her, a steadfast companion in the spotlight. But for some watching, the dynamic felt curated. The focus shifted. Her behavior, as described by attendees, added another layer. Reports of theatrical displays wiping away what appeared to be non-existent tears. Without a handkerchief struck some not as compassion, but as performance. A pantomime of grief that felt disconnected from the raw, quiet sorrow expected at such a solemn occasion. But perhaps the most revealing window came from Stacy herself during her own speech at Charlie's memorial. She shared how they met 8 years ago at a donor event. She admitted she initially thought little of him, but was won over by his naive audaciousness. And then she framed their relationship with a specific intimate phrase. She said Charlie was more of a little brother than a boss. Consider that statement in its full context. This is a senior fundraising executive allegedly embedded in a complex financial web within his organization, publicly recasting their professional relationship as a familial one. Little brother implies protectiveness, innocence, and a personal bond that transcends corporate structure. It's a powerful reframing, and it raises a difficult question. Is this the language of genuine personal loss, or is it a strategic narrative, one that could potentially soften or obscure the harder financial questions about their professional ties? We're now looking at two parallel stories, one of alleged financial channels operating in the shadows, and another of very public, emotionally charged appearances. The question for us as observers is no longer just what did she do, but what story is being told and why. This brings us to the final and perhaps most unsettling piece of the puzzle, the direct impact on Erika Kirk's public journey through grief and what this managed presence means for the legacy at the heart of it all. This brings us to a critical moment, a turning point that transforms this story from a controversy into a potential tragedy. Before his death, Charlie Kirk was not just a figurehead, he was, according to multiple sources, becoming an auditor. Shortly before his assassination, Charlie Kirk reportedly initiated an internal memo calling for a full, comprehensive financial audit of Turning Point USA.
Well, one of Charlie Kirk's last company-wide directives was to carry out a Doge-style audit at Turning Point USA. He confided that there were significant money problems, possible embezzlement, maybe fraud. He wanted to get to the bottom of it. Why were they burning through cash so quickly? It seems odd.
Stated aim was to investigate the flow of money within the organization and to identify any irregularities. Sources indicate Charlie had growing, serious concerns. He was reportedly alarmed by the rapid depletion of TPUSA's funds and was determined to follow the money to uncover the precise reasons behind the financial drain. This is no longer just about triple dipping or questionable public behavior. The audit memo introduces a staggering new dimension: motive. It places Charlie Kirk not as a passive beneficiary of a system, but as an active threat to it. It transforms his death from a random political tragedy into an event that casts a long, dark shadow over every financial discrepancy we've discussed. The unanswered questions now loom larger and more disturbing than ever. Was the audit the reason? What would it have found? And who stood to lose the most if it had been completed? We are left at the edge of a cliff, looking into a darkness where personal greed, professional betrayal, and profound loss collide. This is where the gossip ends, and a much heavier story begins. Now let's step back and look at the picture that has emerged from these fragments: the official bios, the insider labels, the financial trails, the public performances, and finally, that fateful unfinished audit. What we have is not a simple scandal, but a narrative of contradiction. On one side, the mission-driven language of patriotism and impact. On the other hand, the blunt, whispered allegation of a grifter-in-chief and a system that appears designed to divert resources, not deploy them. We have a key figure whose public story is one of familial devotion and constant support, while her professional footprint, the financial ties, and the vanished name from legal documents tell a story of opacity and potential conflict. And hanging over it all is the unanswered question posed by Charlie Kirk himself in that final decisive act: a demand for an audit, a call for light, abruptly followed by darkness. For the audience, for the donors, for anyone who believes in the integrity of a cause, this story story transcends gossip. It becomes a case study in transparency. It asks us how we tell the difference between a movement and a machine, between collective purpose and personal profit. The facts as they stand do not give us tidy answers. They give us a trail that ends at a memo that was never executed and a ledger that may never be fully opened. What remains is a choice: to look away from the uncomfortable questions, or to insist, as Charlie Kirk reportedly did in his final days, that the books must be opened, the flow of money must be traced, and the story, no matter how complex, must be followed to its end. Because in the end, this isn't just about Stacy Sheridan or Erika Kirk or even TPUSA. It's about where we place our trust and what we demand in return. And that is a story worth watching until the very last chapter.